Hey guys, this is Jonathan Meyer from Rokeley.com, and today I'm going to show you how to install the Amazon AWS Command Line tool and spin up an EC2 instance from the AWS Command Line. So, to get started, first open up whatever terminal app you use. I just use the built-in Mac terminal app. And make sure you're in your home directory. That's cd /. Yep, home directory. And first things first, we are going to install the command line tool using pip. So the way that permissions on my computer work, I have to use a sudo. So that means I do this as a super user. You may or may not have to do this. Fiddle around, try it out. You'll get a feel pretty quickly for what you need to do. So then I'm going to type sudo pip install AWS CLI. We'll run that. I have to enter my password. All right, so I already have all of the packages installed, but you should see a longer installation page. So now from here, we can test out whether or not we have everything working by typing AWS help. All right, so no such file or directory. This basically means that the AWS executable is not on our bash path. So what is a bash path? Well, basically anytime that you run a command, bash takes the command argument and looks through a list of directories to try to find one with a matching name, and then it calls that executable. So for instance, when we run echo hello, bash has just looked through they're called path directories, and found an executable called echo, and then executed that executable with the argument hello. So we can actually print our path by typing $path, and you see that's my path right now. So we're going to have to modify that and add the directory where pip installed the AWS executable to. So to find that, we can run python -m site, and this will give us a bunch of data about where exactly our packages are being installed. And so the really important thing to notice here is that we have this folder here, which is users Jonathan library Python 2.7. And so from here, we can cd into that directory. And you can actually use tab to autocomplete, so I'm going to do that rather than typing out every directory name. So we'll cd into that directory and look at what's there. Okay, so there's a bin directory. Typically executables live in a bin directory, so we'll cd in there, bin, ls, and what do you know? There's our AWS executable. So we can actually filter out all the others by piping our ls into a grep, so ls grep AWS, and there we only see the AWS executables. So this is the bin directory. We're going to need to add this directory to our path. So to do that, first we'll get the directory by doing print working directory, which is pwd. All right, now I'm just going to copy this into my clipboard. And then from there, I'm going to go back to my home directory. And to add this to our path, every time that we start up our command shell, we're going to want to do this in a file called bash profile. So it may or may not already exist on your computer, but I'm just going to create one right now. So it's going to be vim.bash profile. Vim is just a standard text editor that pretty much every computer has these days, as long as it's Unix based. So we're going to use Vim and open up this new file called .bash_profile. And then to start writing in Vim, you have to hit the key I to go into insertion mode. And so now we are going to modify our path variable. So we're going to say export. Actually, first we should make a comment. All right, and so now the actual syntax is going to be export path equal quote, and now we can paste that that directory path that we copied earlier, and then we're going to want to, so basically we're prepending this to our current path, so we're going to also want to call our old path so that we don't lose all of the old directories on our path. And just as an aside, this is the syntax for referencing a previously existing environment variable, which is what we're modifying right now. The path is an environment variable. All right, so close out the quotes right here, and hit escape to exit insertion mode. And then from there, to save this, we're going to hit :X to escape and save. All right, so now, has our path changed? No, it's exactly the same as it was before. In order to actually get this to execute, we're going to call source.bash_profile. And now we'll check path again, and you'll see that we have this new directory added to our path. And now we'll try running AWS again, AWS help. And it brings us to the AWS help page. So now we have the AWS CLI tool working, and our next step will be spinning up an EC2 instance using this CLI. So to exit this page, just hit Q. There you go. And now we want to configure our AWS login credentials. So if you remember from our last tutorial, we downloaded a file called credentials.csv. If you didn't move it, then it will most likely just be in your downloads folder. I personally like to keep my credentials folders in a folder in my dev directory that I made called dev secure. So I'm going to cd in there and ls. And you'll see right there, there's the credentials file. I'm not going to print them out on the screen because that would be pretty insecure, and I would have to create new ones. So I'm not going to do that. But if you want to print your own, you can just use cat credentials, and you can just tab it, and it'll autocomplete for you. And so then once you have those credentials printed on your own screen, you can go to AWS Configure, and it'll prompt you for a series of values. So first, the AWS access key ID. So, type that in, whatever it is, I've already entered my credentials, so I'm just going to leave them as is. Then you can hit enter, and next you'll be prompted for your secret access key. Enter that, hit enter, and then enter your default region. For the sake of this tutorial, I would highly recommend that you use US East 1 because some of the other information later on will vary depending on the region that you're in, but your call. And then once we have that, you can hit enter, and you can set your default output format. I chose JSON just because, I don't know, it's easy to read. So that's that. You should be all ready to log in. And now the first request that we're actually going to make to the AWS service through the command line is to create something called a VPC, or a virtual private cloud. Now, a VPC is essentially a logical unit that allows you to separate your own cloud servers from the general AWS cloud servers. So I'm not really going to get into the details too much because there's a lot of network engineering stuff that goes into it. But for now, we're just going to create a default VPC. So to do this, we're going to use the command AWS EC2 create default VPC. Now I've already created a default VPC, so this command is going to error out, but for you this should spin up a new default VPC. All right, yeah, so I already have one in this region, so I can't create a second one. But once we have that, we're going to use AWS EC2 describe VPCs to look at what we've created. This is going to be a lot of output. So there it is in JSON. So you can see here that I have 2 VPCs created. We can see by looking at this is default parameter that this lower VPC here is my default VPC. So now that we have our VPC, we are going to go and create a security group within this VPC. So the command for this is going to be Now, for this VPC ID, we are going to want to go and grab the default VPC that we just created. So for you, this should be the only VPC that you have. And for me, it's going to be this VPC here because it is the default as indicated here. So I'm just going to plug that in. And now we'll hit enter and we should be ready to go. There we go. And we have a new security group ID. So now the last piece of information that we need before spinning up an EC2 instance is what's called an Amazon Machine Image ID. So when we create a server, we're basically cloning an image of a server that Amazon already has stored and has created for us. So there are 2 different ways to do this. The hacky, easy way to do it is to just go to Amazon's website, type in EC2, go to launch instance, and just grab the AMI ID right here. We're specifically going to be launching an EC2 instance running Amazon Linux. But this is really not the professional way to do it. It's not going to work in any sort of continuous integration environment. So I'm going to show you guys how to do this on the command line as well. All right, and so this command is pretty verbose. So I've actually written it up beforehand. Just gonna cd up a directory, and there it is, this AWS images file. We'll say cat, so we'll print this to the screen. All right, so that's the whole command right there. It'll take a little while to type out. So rather than typing this all out by hand, I'm just going to source this file that I've written the command to. As you may have seen in my video on installing pip, this is a great way to store commands to a file and run them later. So we're going to run source AWS images text, and this will take a minute. It's basically searching all Amazon image IDs or Amazon machine images. All right, and there we go. We have a result. And so the way that I structured this command is basically I request all the information from Amazon, and then I parse it using a tool called grep, which will look up various sets of strings and only return the lines that contain those symbols. So in this situation, I'm piping the output from the AWS command into grep, and I'm saying look for all lines with either image ID or creation date in them. So now we can just go line by line and have a look and see what's going on here. So this image ID was created in April of 2017. So we're looking for the most recent one, so that's not really what we want. This was done in August. And all right, here, this looks to be the latest image. And this is going to be the ID right here. All right, so now we're going to use all of this information to spin up our EC2 instance. And we can do this with the command and here we're going to plug in the image ID that we found earlier. So in this case, it's going to be AMI-6057 E21A. And keep in mind that this most recent image ID will change as time goes on. So you won't necessarily want to plug this in exactly verbatim. If, for instance, you are viewing this tutorial in 2018, then you'll want to change the 2017 in the query to 2018, and just grab the most recent ID that your query returns. So now that we have the image ID all set, we want to enter the security group ID. So here we're just going to use the security group that we just generated. So and then we want to specify the number of instances to spin up. I'm just going to spin up one. Specify the instance type. I'm just going to use T2 micro. This is the smallest instance type that AWS has to offer, and you can run one free for a year if this is your first year as an AWS customer. So really nice perk there. And then finally, we are going to want to specify a key pair. If you were following along with my previous tutorial, the key pair that I created was named Jonathan-MB, so that's what I'm going to use. You can use whatever key pair name you created. So this will be key name. All right, and there we go. That's the whole command, and we can hit enter. All right, now you guys have spun up an EC2 instance. If you scroll up a little bit, you can see some information about it. For instance, here you can see the security group, or if you go a little higher, you can see the state. Mine is running, yours may or may not be pending. They kind of spin up at varying speeds depending on the load on Amazon's servers at the time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Appreciate any comments, questions, likes, the usual. Have a good one, guys.